It is the strongest anti-rioting, pro-law enforcement piece of legislation in the country. And there's just nothing even close. We also have penalties for people that commandeer highways, which we saw in other parts of the country. They start to do that, there needs to be swift penalties, and that's something that just cannot happen.
Well, that was Florida's Republican Governor Ron DeSantis rolling out his new anti-protest law last week. What he didn't say in that press conference is that the new law grants civil immunity to motorists who just happen to hit protesters in the streets with their cars, effectively absolving those drivers of civil liability. Now, when we covered that news on this program last week, I compared DeSantis to former Alabama Governor George Wallace, something that upset some of the usual suspects on the right. Now, it's a comparison that I've made to Donald Trump in the past. But whereas Trump talked a lot like George Wallace, even using violent rhetoric against protesters at his rallies, DeSantis is actually governing like the former Alabama governor, especially with his new anti-protest law. And that makes him tonight's absolute worst. After all, George Wallace made no secret of what he would do to protesters if they were lying in the street in front of his car.
I said in California that if I come to that state, or I go to New York or come to Seattle, and a group of anarchists lie down in front of my automobile as president, I'm going to wean them of lying in front of automobiles.
Now, by specifically cracking down on street protests, DeSantis is taking a page out of the Wallace playbook. In fact, Governor Wallace actually cited possible traffic violations as a justification to ban the historic civil rights march from Selma to Montgomery over the Edmund Pettus Bridge in 1965. That, too, was an unlawful assembly, according to Wallace, who unleashed state troopers on the peaceful protesters, including John Lewis, on a day that would go down in history as Bloody Sunday. In gleefully signing that anti-protest bill last week, Governor DeSantis also brought in the sheriff of Polk County, one Grady Judd, who gave a patronizing lecture to warn potential demonstrators about the consequences of this new law. But with his tough guy threats, Sheriff Judd sure sounded a lot like a throwback to another Florida sheriff, Walter Headley. As the chief of the Miami Police Department, Headley was famous for his tough talk and tactics against civil rights protesters in the 1960s. He's the guy who warned that when the looting starts, the shooting starts, something Trump as president would notoriously repeat. And if you watch their respective press conferences, Sheriffs Judd and Headley practically complete each other's sentences.
Pay attention. We've got new law. And we're going to use it if you make us.
My job is to protect life and property. That's the job of every police officer here. And we're going to use any means at our disposal to accomplish this.
Peaceful protest, we encourage, and more riot. We can tell the difference.
People know the laws they're violating as well as you do and I do.
You can compare and contrast. Look at Seattle, Portland, Minneapolis.
That's the reason that some of the incidents that have happened in the north have been as serious as they were.
Don't register to vote and vote the stupid way you did up north. You'll get what they got.
Florida is among 4 states to sign anti-protest bills into law. And coincidentally, they all come in the wake of the Black Lives Matter movement. But according to one Republican senator, there is no systemic racism in this country. It just doesn't even exist. And that is coming up next.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.